I'm really excited about doing this presentation because I actually started my career doing streetscapes projects out in the Shire and in the city centre in Aberdeen, all of about 25 years ago. So what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to talk about the sustainable transport and the need for change, which has been covered a little bit, but I'll give my take on that. Delivering change, which is what it's all about. And then I'm going to finish with a wee scandalous and controversial conclusion, so hang on for that. And then there's a nice wee picture of Stonehaven up there, lovely little bit of public realm. And if anybody is out there thinks that would be nicer as a parking space, this is probably the wrong presentation for you. So some fabulous assets in the Northeast. Let's see how you can make them really work for people who are on foot. Living Streets, as explained, we were the Pedestrians Association. We've been around a long time, since 1929. And we've been trying to reclaim the streets basically for people on foot, make them safer and more pleasant. And we were rebranded Living Streets about 20 years ago. I'm going to start the story about 60 odd years ago. Basically, this is when we decided we had a problem. The government asked a Scottish Transport Planner to work out what you're going to do about all this traffic. And what he said was basically, you've got a few choices here. You can knock everything down and start again, and you can accommodate the traffic, or you can keep the traffic out, or you can fudge things. And actually what we've probably done is we've fudged things a little bit. We've not faced up to the finite amount of space we have for different modes of transport and the consequences of that. And it's maybe no coincidence that just as the cities were being invaded, the Daleks came by cars, the Daleks came onto our TV screens. Some important thoughts here. Donald Berswick, he's the guy that invented Medicare in America, and he says every system is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. So what I'm really saying here is this is no accident we are here where we are. We've kind of planned for it, we've designed for it, and that's what we've got. And it's kind of worse than that. Actually, systems have a kind of way of perpetuating themselves, and that was by an environmental economist who's quite famous called Onmel Meadows. And this is kind of a map of the system we've got at the moment. This is from the Royal Commission on Environmental Pollution. And I could go around anywhere in Aberdeenshire or bits of Aberdeen, probably tick all these boxes. That is probably a fairly accurate map. I had a look through some of the, we've done quite a lot of work in the Northeast. We've been in Bankery, we've been in Bab, we've been in Macduff, we've been in Old Meldrum, Stonehaven, West Hill, Middlefield, Powys, Torry. Recently did work in Kincourt and Leggart, and you can see all sorts of signs of that type of stuff going on because of the way we've designed our transport system. It's kind of got out of control, and we need to kind of bring it back down to a human scale, and that's what I'm really going to talk about today. So, real challenges. We are at the end of a pandemic, hopefully an end. And things are changing. We're going to focus on local services, so it's good to hear about some of the stuff that's going out on with integrated travel towns. Online retail and entertainment's here to stay. That's a big change. We've got home working. We've got a real demand, I think, for outdoor space. People will want to gather outdoors, and that's probably not going to go away. We've got demand for better access to local green space. Again, we need to make sure that our transport system and our urban environments deliver that. Action and air quality covered. Economic shock and hardship, that is the context we're working in. We've got changes in people cycling, walking. People have done an awful lot more walking and cycling over the last year. We've got the climate emergency, which will become a focus. And we really need to work out what we do with our transition. But I think the big one is the population health improvement priority. Basically, what COVID has shown us that the people who got most sick were the people who had underlying conditions, and a lot of those underlying conditions come from the lifestyles that we have at the moment. And we can tackle that by walking a bit more. One of the responses is emerging 20-minute neighbourhood, and I look through this, and one of the things we need to do to get these to work is actually take some of the traffic out to centres. We can't do this stuff unless we take the traffic out of our towns and cities and reduce that. None of this stuff works. You don't feel safe in places. You won't want to walk around if it's buzzing with traffic. And there's a lot of traffic in Aberdeenshire and in Aberdeen, and that's grown over a number of years. So thinking about things at a local scale, this is data collected by Paths for All. We work with them on a report, but this is their report into National Walking Strategy. What it tells us about how far people are prepared to walk, and actually they will walk quite far, and a lot of people have the services they need quite close to where they need them. But we do need to close that gap in terms of encouraging people to walk further, which means making walking better or reducing the time it takes to walk. And actually it does take longer than it should do because of all the obstructions and things we put in the way of people on foot, waiting at crossings, junctions that take you way off diversion lines, and I'll come to that in a second. So the main point here is we need to bring services closer to people, and we need to make it easier to walk around things. But there's a lot of potential already there, and there's still a lot of potential in the towns and neighbourhoods in Aberdeenshire and the Shire that's untapped. And just to make that point, roadside and payments, they're really key bit of infrastructure we kind of underrate. 71% of that is where people spend their time getting around and about cities, and that's where people want to walk more so than anywhere else. So we need to invest in this. Is really important bits of public infrastructure. And we need to think about this in terms of people, not just in terms of transport, and this is where things go wrong. We need to take a behaviour change approach. We need to take a social marketing approach, and again, the integrated travel times approach is good. Really need to do this is stuff that's from public health. We know it works when you do it well. We've done it with smoking, done it with seatbelts. There's a whole load of examples that we're not quite doing it yet. So it's not just about infrastructure. It's about thinking about how people think, and it's about how they work as groups. We need to influence that thinking as well as just building stuff and regulating stuff. And there's a way to go on that. And again, some good news from Aberdeen here. This is the annual Car Free Day that I know Alan Simpson was very involved in. This is fantastic, and this is what we should be doing. And there was a lot of hype in Edinburgh when it did this, but actually Aberdeen had been doing it for years. I need to do more of that and make it positive and get out there and show people what streets can actually do. So yeah, behaviour change is underrated and not often done well, but actually this is a good example of doing it well, and we need more of that. This is a project that we work on with Aberdeenshire Council and the City Council, and this is our travel tracker, which is basically influencing travel choice at school. It's a really good established programme, and we really welcome the support we get from the councils in the North East. They've been our strongest supporters, and what these graphs show is even in schools that actually have pretty good levels of walking, you can go way further if you incentivise kids. What we do is we bring in the power of, it's a competition basically. Kids collect badges and then they pester their parents to make it easier for them to get to school on foot, and it really works. And we've been doing it in the North East, and we'd love to do more. It's 5 to 10% boost is the latest evaluations we do. In terms of where that could go, we could do more schools. Certainly there's scope. We're probably only really scratching the surface. We're working with some of the more willing schools, some of the more challenging schools. I think we could target them, working with the councils. I think there's a scope to actually do some strategic approach to delivery. Aberdeenshire in particular is a big place for getting around, and let's see what economies of scale we could do by working together with Nestrans possibly, and how we could deliver that project more intensively. There's other models out there, and as I say, we should really be more targeted on that. We're working with quite a lot of good schools. There's others out there I'm sure we could work with. Other council areas have been very successful in rolling out street closures and play streets to reinforce these types of programmes, and I think you could see more of that in the North East, and there isn't too much pushback in doing that, and it does change things. 20 mile an hour, and I know there's been efforts on that, but I think it could go, again, the North East could go much further. It's something that can be rolled out quickly. The data's all there. There is no more evidence needed. This stuff works. No question. It works everywhere. Everywhere that's evaluated, it works. It's in terms of being cost effective. And I would point to what's been going on in the borders through spaces for people. Briefly during lockdown, I got to sample a little bit of that. Worked really well in small towns, because it just feels the right speed. It actually works better in the borders than it does in Edinburgh, which has had a lot of hype about it. So it's not a silver bullet, but it's something that it can work, and it is one of the sort of bases for all the other things you want to do. Public transport connections now. We did a little bit of work looking at stations and things, and really we need to up the game. Aberdeen needs to up its game here in terms of it is not a welcome environment if you step out the train on foot, and you really want that to be an advertisement for a wonderful public realm, which you can get to, but you've got a bit of an obstacle course to navigate before you get up onto Union Street. So I really think that's something to look at, is what's going on outside the main stations. Bus stop environment, we've looked at that as well, and as part of a wider package, there's a lot that should be done, and that was what we were doing up at Kincarth and out at Legger. Really, still some pretty prehistoric infrastructure in the Shire, in terms of what I've got some examples from the city here. That's not a very nice obstacle course for pedestrians down by the beach. There's some missing tactiles there. I think it's Little John Street or somewhere in that vicinity. It's so indistinct, that environment, I can't quite tell. But this was my last trip, believe it or not, in 2019. But lots of basic stuff that can be doing. There's lots of of our reports that are out there. So this stuff is all available to the transport departments to do in terms of things that could be done that would just massively improve getting around on foot, and something. If you want to go big, and I think Aberdeen can go big, I really like the project out of Marshall College. Was up there again 2 years ago coming up, but really good project, and it just sets the whole alive, the brilliant public realm that the North East has. And what you want to do is get people out their cars, because that's when they spend money. At the end of the day, that's what Aberdeen has a track record, actually going way back, of doing good public realm schemes, and there are also good examples in the Shire as well. So they're well worth doing. They are a hassle, you will get pushed back, but once they're done, and everybody enjoys them, and everybody forgets that. This is a project I would love to see. Not many cities have a beach, but it isn't a great connection between the city centre and the beach area. Could have a fantastic boulevard going down. There's plenty of space to do this with a little bit of political will. To deliver a cycleway and a pedestrian walkway and some great lightings, public realm. That would be a fantastic project. I sit on one of the panels that looks into this for Sustrans, along with reps from councils and stuff. And this is the type of project that panel laps up. It's sort of a big strategic project that has a bit of vision and has obvious potential for behaviour change. Planning. Some good stuff going on in the North East. You need to do more of it, and it really is about putting facilities near where people need to walk to them. It's about permeability in and around the states, and some of the work we did in places like Middlefield. Are the links there? Are they pleasant? Probably not. They need it upgraded, and it's about setting some minimum standards and setting that out to developers in terms of what is needed on the ground. Footways, safe crossing, segregated cycle lanes. In terms of facilities, I put that picture in of the toilet roll deliberately. It's a bit COVID theme, but actually, if you're building something like a housing estate and it's not possible to go and buy a toilet roll without jumping in a car, you're doing something wrong. So that's the ultimate test, I would say. Access to green spaces, I've said, and really thinking about parking up front. I think any house should come with its own parking space and parking permit. That's where we're at. It's very, very difficult to put them in afterwards as an asset, saying, well, this is good. You get a parking space and you get a permit, and it allows you to manage and control things from the get-go. And there's various other things. It's going to be difficult to get people to give up their cars, but with their second car, their third car, let's start looking at car clubs, and that's actually in Murrayshire. I didn't quite get into the Shire example, but I know there is examples in Huntly. That's over at Finhorn. But yeah, if you're going to get people are going to have expensive bits of kit like electric cars, they need to be used all the time, and let's do them on a car share basis rather than dishing out grants. Much more efficient. Coming to some good planning examples, out at Chapelton, we did some work looking at for good examples of practice across Scotland, and I'm pleased to say this is about the only one found in the whole of Scotland. Chapelton, a really, really nice public realm. I'm not sure why it's a 30 mile an hour though, really real daftness there, but apart from that, it was fantastic. Just in terms of how it'd been designed and thought through in terms of transport. So your planners are doing something right, need to do more of that. And I'm going to contrast here with something this is equivalent. This is Winchborough, which is about the same distance outside of Edinburgh as Chapelton is to Aberdeen. And just a totally different approach. All this sort of stuff is getting promoted up front and it's getting sold to people, and that's great. It's saying all the infrastructure's up here in the blurb, so that it's getting sold. And then you can see we did a kind of place standard to see how that would look, and Chapelton comes out that pretty good. So yeah, just do more of that and be really tough on developers that are not putting in the facilities or want to put things in daft places where you just can't do things without having a car. And the market is with you on this. I just think developers are behind the times. They drive to their sites. There is an awful lot of inertia in the system, but people really value local ships and facilities and bus services. And that's where the name of the game is. And I think actually a lot of this stuff, it's more important to think about this stuff, not to say that cycling isn't important, but it isn't the big sell to the public yet. I think the walking environment is a winner, and it's an easy one to promote. I think the important thing is to consider how you do all of this, and there is funding about if you're proactive about it. And I think some other parts of Scotland have been more proactive than the Northeast in terms, certainly tapping in some of the bigger funds, which is a shame because where Aberdeenshire and the Shire of Aberdeenshire Council and Aberdeen Council have been good. The Smarter Choices places, they're really good programmes. So the money is there if you go after it, and there is probably work to be done. And I had this crazy thought when I was looking at what the opportunities were. There's probably some UK government money sitting out there. And what about getting them to do Union Street? You know, the Union Fund for Union Street. Let's see if we can get a big public realm scheme fund. They couldn't say no, surely not. Coming down the line, we can't. I think the out-of-town parking levy is something that the Commission on Town Centres is looked at, and in workplaces. That shouldn't be ignored. It's maybe a little bit easier early post-pandemic to look at that, but it's going to come back, and you need to think about that because you'll need match funding for this stuff. And even the tourism tax is something, again, is maybe a few years off, but start building the business case, start thinking about how that might work. So I might have been speaking nonsense though. This could all just be a fad, as you can see from the slide. I don't think so though. So just bear in mind that there's a lot of hype out this, but I think it's real, and it's real right across the world. So I don't want the Northeast to work because it is a fantastic part of the world, and it will, if it's just cluttered with cars, it's not going to compete. And some controversies for you. This is one of the first projects I ever worked on at the top there. That is in Inverbervie. That is a sea witch. You will find her in two places in the UK. One of them is on the front of the Curtis Act, another is in Inverbervie. She is the successor statue to a very small fiberglass structure that sat in that space about 25 years ago, and I worked on the upgrade, and that is the upgrade. And what I didn't know was she's quite gaudy, and she was sort of full painted lady for the sailors of Victorian times, and it was a bit of a shock to the system. Some people in Inverbervie, it hit the P&G, and I got hold of it. What is this project about? But she's still there. The controversy, who knows about it now? It's just a nice, interesting piece of public realm. But I would say she does need to get painted again to be seen in her full glory. But it's a nice piece of culture. So controversies come, controversies go, but public realm lasts the time. And that's George Street, and I'm sure there's a lot of controversy back in the day about pedestrianism. But you know, that's a pedestrian space that people are just enjoying today and actually talking about extending. So it is difficult at the time, but over time, people forget, and you just get left with a much better place. And I'm going to leave with this thought. I can't say this any better than this academic from the northeast of Scotland. From California. If you plan for cities for cars and traffic, you get cars and traffic. If you plan for people and places, you get people and places, and that's what you should do. There's lots of good examples already. Just keep going at it and don't lose confidence. Thank you very much.